Thank you very much, Chris. And yeah, lots of great stuff online at theweathernetwork.com, the top fives and all kinds of different features, as well as some really great writing from our digital team. But let's take in Kitchener-Waterloo, and that's where we find Kevin. And the timing of that, Kevin, will likely be tomorrow morning, where we may see some mixing in Kitchener-Waterloo and across southern Ontario. So they put it in our briefing this morning. But yeah, it's going to be moving through with some rainfall through Friday a.m. We could be looking at about 5 millimeters of rain or so. Now, keep in mind as well that it's possible this could be mixing. So it's going to be chilly in the overnight. In fact, it's going to get a lot colder by next week. We're talking about an Arctic blast that's headed our way by next week across the Great Lakes Basin. That could even result in some lake effect. For the time being, this is a weak low. It moves across again with the showers and some cooling overnight, possible mixing in the forecast. And that's really through Sunday and then back into next week. That's when we start really getting into the Arctic air. Some rain for the early part of next week as the temperatures rise temporarily. Thank you very much, Mike. We are going to take a look at our weather conditions, and we do have a weak low-pressure system coming through the Great Lakes Basin. More on that in a moment, though. First, let's go to Kasia. She's in Angus as we talk about recovery from this past summer's weather events. Will do. Thanks, Kasia. We have rainfall. Not a lot of rain. It's a fairly weak system that's rolling through with about 5 millimeters of rain or less. But there is the potential for early Friday, and we're talking about people who are commuting in the very early, even pre-dawn hours, is the best chance of picking up on the mixing. If you leave, say, around 7 a.m. or so, it's likely to be in the form of showers by that time frame. It's a fairly low, weak low-pressure system as it moves through the showers. We'll see high pressure beyond that. Thank you very much, Kim. Always great stuff. Anytime there are animals in the segment, I love it. We're going to take a look, actually, at our weather conditions. May have some showers coming through. Details on that in a moment. First, let's check in outside with Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, we do have a weak low-pressure system that's moving through, and with that, it's possible we may see a few showers. That would be away from the urban heat island, or the downtown, if you will, or where we have most of our concrete jungle, so to speak, but on the outskirts. And also timing-wise, this would be more so, say, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., rather than, say, 7 or 8 a.m., because by then it will have probably warmed up enough that we would not have that risk. But we've put this map together to show you that early Friday tomorrow morning might see some mixing and then some snowfall. We're already getting snow up into the North Bay area, so that snow line does make its way down to the north side too. But notice what happens with our temperatures. Now we're into the Arctic air right about this time frame. Wednesday, Thursday of next week, it gets really chilly. 1 degree in Hamilton by that time frame. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, it's an important subject as we, live in Canada and an Arctic nation. We have to be upping the amounts of vitamin D, no question. Let's go to Kasia in Angus. Thank you very much, Kasia. And we are taking a look, of course, at this low pressure system going through with 5 millimeters of rain. In terms of the forecast, it might even be mixing in the pre-dawn hours or very early morning hours for the drive in and around the GTA tomorrow. This afternoon, though, some passing showers. It's a fairly weak low-pressure system as it moves through. Pretty dramatic images, right? We're going to take a look at our low-pressure system coming through in a moment. First, though, we want to check in outside with Kasia. Well, that's a bit of good news, right? We have this low-pressure system, and it is bringing some rainfall. If possible, this is going to be cold enough in the overnight and the pre-dawn hours to be mixing with snowfall, and that includes areas around Toronto, although there would be a better chance in the suburbs, perhaps, than downtown. But nevertheless, that mixing potential is there with this low-pressure system, as it's not a powerhouse low, but it's going to be moving through with the rainfall and the showers, and then high pressure building into the Great Lakes Basin. Cold Arctic air. The time frame on that will begin around here, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. You can see the temperatures here for Toronto too. In Hamilton, a little tad cooler, I should say. And we do have some rainfall and even some mixing tomorrow morning possible. So across southern Ontario, by tomorrow morning, pre-dawn hours, the best chance of snow and rain mixing together. So we have some cold air that's headed our way. Not the case necessarily so yet. Let's turn it over to Kevin in Kitchener-Waterloo. Thank you very much, Kevin. It's possible we may see some mixing tomorrow morning. So yeah, you're right. I mean, temperature-wise, we're just above where we should be climatologically for this point in November. Let's go back and take a look. Actually, we're not talking about accumulations, but falling from the sky would be the pre-dawn hours and very early, like if you're leaving the house at, say, 6 a.m. versus 7 a.m. It will make that much of a difference. So we've put this together to say there's potential for mixing and some snow further north. Pembroke, Ottawa, Gatineau, Quebec, and back toward Parry Sound. It's going to be snowing by tomorrow morning. With the jet stream and the patterns around the northern hemisphere, in fact, they're all interconnected. And so really interesting pattern changes are underway. We do have a low that is going to bring us some rainfall Monday, Tuesday. And you may have already heard the rumblings about the cold Arctic air that's on its way next week. Well, things are starting to get going now.
Yes, I think the cold is actually the bigger story compared to the snow. It is going to get cold. Let's talk about those winds in BC, though. The strongest of the winds will be this afternoon. So pink on this map indicates sustained winds greater than 60 kilometers per hour.
We're going to get a funneling here through the Juan de Fuca Strait, also Georgia Strait, Southern Gulf Islands, wind warnings posted from that. So it's going to be definitely a powerhouse low. It's a very mature system. It's going to bring a lot of wind and possibly some damage, maybe even some power outages, considering the fact we've had so much rain. A lot of the tree roots are unstable, so we'll be watching that.
That's a really good point. Trees toppling over onto hydro lines is a definite possibility this afternoon, but notice high pressure moves in. Get through this afternoon, conditions improve this evening, and then tomorrow's looking great in the south.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look now in terms of the additional rainfall totals between now and into Friday morning. Again, the areas around Metro Van, North Van, which we don't need any more rain, but we're looking at 30 to 60 millimeters of rain.
Yeah, so that's story number one. We'll talk about the cold across the prairies in a moment, but let's talk about a low pressure system moving into Atlantic Canada.
And at least some stronger winds. We have stronger winds expected, especially as you head further north with the direction of the next low pressure system, which is going to be coming in. It just skirts by the coast of Nova Scotia.
Right, and you'll really notice it later in the day Friday. Again, the pinks are the stronger winds, and you can see that for coastal New Brunswick in particular. It is going to be a windy day. It's also, comparing it to the last nor'easter we were dealing with, it's moving so much further west that it is mostly a rain event for all the populated areas.
That's Hamilton, the Gaspé Peninsula, and up into Anacostia and North Shore, Quebec, getting the most of that.
And it is. I mean, today not necessarily cold, but by next Wednesday, Toronto, daytime highs around 2 degrees, feeling like -5. That cold air from the prairies is going to move in.
You know, I don't think it's really too soon to start thinking about snow tires at this point.
Yeah.
As soon as the temperature is about 7 degrees or lower consistently, it's time to start putting them on. We have the potential tomorrow morning of some mixing. I think this would be brief. I think this would be pre-dawn. Thank you so much for that, Chris. And when we look at our temperature forecast for today, 10 degrees, nice to see in double digits, but it's just about average, if not just slightly above average. So nothing too out of the norm at this point, but nevertheless, it's pretty decent out there for the time being. A low pressure system is going to make its way through. We will possibly see some mixing tomorrow, but looking back at yesterday's temperatures, sitting in about the same range. Thank you very much for that, Kevin. We have a low pressure system coming through. That's why we see a little bit of warmth across the lower lakes region. The low pressure system is moving away, and with that, there will be some colder air behind it. And as such, we have the potential of some mixing. Now, largely this is going to be light rain and showers, not a lot of rain, 5 millimeters through tomorrow morning. But when you factor in that the cold air is also coming through, snowfall in northeastern Ontario is already happening. That line goes further south down toward Parry Sound, across southern Ontario, at least briefly, and through the pre-dawn and early morning hours. Well, speaking with regard to commuting, then we may see some mixing. It would be turning over to showers, and then we'll continue to see that potential right through Saturday. And we start to get into that Arctic blast. You may have heard us already talking about that. Wednesday through Thursday, temperatures sitting at 1. But what's beyond that time frame? We'll have the answer for you coming up in the Long Ranger.
So on this Thursday, Sheryl, we have a lot to talk about. Storms on both coasts and, of course, the cold making its way toward the prairies.
It's becoming a big story. We're talking about some strong winds for Atlantic Canada and Alberta preparing for the next snow event. Yes, we do have some snow possibly on the way for late Saturday night into Sunday. It could be significant. We might have to up the totals of snowfall. It could be 5 to 10 centimeters on the way.
Yes, and we'll talk about the cold as well, because we're talking really cold. The first blast of cold Arctic air. But notice the pink on this map representing winds sustained greater than 60 kilometers per hour. The worst of the winds through this afternoon. There are wind warnings in place.
There might be some disruptions with regard to ferry travel in southwestern BC. Some strong winds and wind warnings from Environment Canada posted for you know, this could be well in excess of 80, 90 kilometers per hour pretty easily, actually, because of the low is fairly mature.
Exactly. And you were mentioning before, and it was a great point, trees right now, because the ground is so saturated, the roots aren't that strong. They could topple over onto hydro lines.
I think we're going to talk about some power outages from this one for sure. But let's take a look now in terms of this rainfall total between now and Friday morning. An additional 30 to 60 millimeters of rain for North Vancouver.
So overnight tonight, everything will be done. And then we have a pretty decent looking long range forecast in Vancouver.
Yes, we do. And that's because we'll be ridging in the west, but we're going to be troughing in the central and eastern parts of the country next week. And that's when the cold Arctic air, the Arctic blast, is on its way. And Newfoundland is probably going to feel a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Monday. Daytime highs -7 in Edmonton and Regina. It's cold. That's winter cold.
Yeah, but it's November.
Okay, so you're saying it is winter.
No, we have to admit it, right?
Yeah.
So wind. Just want to talk about this for Atlantic Canada because the low comes in, and we do see the very strong winds. It's just picking up in strength, really due to the passage of the low, but it's tracking further west than the last one.
And that's a strong point because the snow then moves further to the north. So in Fredericton, where you saw everything.
Morning, I think pre-dawn hours, we have to watch for mixing.
Yes, we're not talking about accumulating snowfall in the largest city in the country, but certainly some mixing always makes for some messy conditions on that morning commute.
In Manitoba, Winnipeg, also less than 5 centimeters of snow possible, and we'll have your locals coming up. Stay with us. Pretty alarming stuff when you see that. It's so slow moving, but yet so devastating. Thank you, Kim, for bringing those to our attention. These are the cloud tops across the continent. We have a lot of action in the west, and we've got some action going on in the east. Now, low pressure system is going to be moving through the Great Lakes region. With that, it will bring some winds that are stronger toward the lake shores. As it passes, the winds shift direction. High pressure builds in. It's more of a northerly flow heading into tomorrow. All right, some good news that came out of that, right? Finally, it's taken 5 months, mind you. Low pressure system is bringing in, at least temporarily, some milder air, more seasonal air, in fact. And then the cold air builds in, the northerly winds set up closer to the shorelines. It'll be more brisk, and then high pressure settles in. Tomorrow morning, I would not rule out potential for rain and some snow to be mixed in with that. So it's not going to be a snowstorm, but it's just more of a nuisance and just something we don't want you to be caught off guard. If you leave really early in the morning to start your morning commute in the GTA and you run into some snow, that's where it's coming from because of the moisture and the cool air in place. Then high pressure builds in here. Look at Friday evening now through Saturday. Another low comes in. You can see rain, 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 and then this is the Arctic air. That's when things are going to begin to change for us, and it'll be cold and possibly some snow next week.